recapping Week 11, high-scoring week. We welcome you to Fantasy Football Today, presented by BetMGM, the sportsbook born in Vegas. And I'd like to start out with a stat that I'm about 80% sure is correct. All right? So take that for what it's worth. I think it's right. I think this is the first week all season that we have had 5 players score 35 or more PPR fantasy points. I tried to go and look at the previous weeks, and my first glance was that this was the first time it's happened. If not, it's rare. It's a fun, high-scoring week. Big scores. Oh, sit Taysom Hill, they tell me this morning. I left 40 points on my bench. But I'm over it, I swear. You can tell I'm over it. Anyway, Adam, David, Heath here. How you guys doing? How's your Sunday going?
Did you win the matchup, even with Taysom on your bench?
The last time I checked, I had an 80% chance to win. So.
Okay, that's why you're over it.
You sat Bo Nix today.
I did?
Yeah.
In what league?
Against me in the podcast league.
Oh, in the podcast league, yeah, for Purdy.
And Jameson Williams.
Yeah.
And Christian Watson.
Yeah, I know.
Your bench scored 78 fantasy points in 3 guys.
Does that mean you're going to beat me?
We got a great game. I'm up 4. I have Burrow. You have Higgins and McPherson.
Oh, wow.
It's going to be a fun watch tonight.
Let's go. Field goal. All right, yeah, so this is a big week, man. Like some big matchups and against your friends and all that. You need some bragging rights. All right, Dave, give me the biggest winner of Week 11.
I think the biggest winner might end up being Anthony Richardson, who honestly, 20 of 30 passing, that's good for him. 10% off target rate, that's really good for him. And there were plays that he made through the air in the second half where he looked like a competent NFL quarterback. And on top of that, this dude ran again, and he had 2 rushing touchdowns. And that's the type of this was the guy that we were hoping for when we drafted Anthony Richardson, is that he would be good enough as a passer and he would make some plays. And obviously there were some throws he had that I'm sure he wished he'd had back, but he would also run as well. And the Jets tried to come and play. They definitely stopped the run. They stopped Jonathan Taylor anyway. But this was the Anthony Richardson that we were hoping for this year. I am hoping, fingers crossed, toes too, that Anthony Richardson stays like this. Confident. He said after the game he didn't feel any pressure at all. The most relaxed he's ever been. This is the guy that we need to see. And he might end up being somebody that we're using just as a bye week quarterback. I want to take baby steps with Richardson next week because he plays the Lions. But if he goes against Detroit and he has another big game then, of course we're going to start Anthony Richardson moving forward.
44% roster, 12% started. I did love that quote, Dave, about how he felt the most relaxed he's ever felt and scored 30.1 fantasy points at the Jets. He's not even one of the 5 players who scored 35 or more, but he had a great game. And going into the game, when he and Jonathan Taylor were on the field at the same time from inside the 3-yard line, Taylor had 6 carries and 2 touchdowns. Richardson had 2 carries and 1 touchdown. Today, Taylor got his chances. He couldn't do anything. And then Richardson was basically like, I'll do it myself. Heath, who's the biggest loser from Week 11?
I think you could make an argument for about 8 different guys. We talked a lot about Nick Chubb on FFT Express, and we'll talk about him again a little bit later. But I'm going to say Mark Andrews. Isaiah Likely comes back, leads the team in receiving. 4 different players have more targets than Andrews, who catches 2 passes for 22 yards, only 3 targets in a game that Lamar Jackson threw 33 times. We're right back to, well, maybe we'll fake him into the top 12 rankings, but you can't feel any confidence in him.
Do you feel that Zay Flowers is also a loser? And that's because what did he caught the touchdown late. He had a bad drop, but he only had 6 targets on 33 pass attempts. Do you feel this, not to the same degree, but this is now 2 kind of concerning games in a row for Zay Flowers?
I think he probably should be ranked as a number 2 instead of a number 1.
That's fair. The other thing I would point out, though, is that Lamar Jackson is a different quarterback when he takes on the Steelers. And I was hoping that this MVP campaign that he had been on this whole year would overtake that trend, and it didn't. There was pressure on him all game long. He seemed way discombobulated all game long. Really like one good drive for the Ravens in the entire matchup against the Steelers. And so when you see that Justice Hill leads the team in targets, and that's right. Targets, like that's how you know that there were a lot of checkdowns, and he had to get rid of the ball quick at times, or his pass catchers were covered deep. This is what the Steelers do to him. They torment him, and he has to figure out how to beat that yet.
And this is now 8 straight meetings between the Ravens and the Steelers where no individual team has scored more than 20 points. That's wild. All right, let's go on to fill in the blank from our listeners. Before we do that, I want to talk about Beyond the Box Score. I won't talk about it much, but it's tomorrow's episode with me, Jacob Gibbs, and Dan Schneier. We get to dig a little bit deeper onto some of the numbers. We give a very comprehensive recap of Sunday Night Football, a game in which obviously Joe Burrow scored 20 points, but T. Higgins scored 18, and McPherson scored 8. So it was a great game. But anyway, that's Beyond the Box Score Mondays. And then they do another episode on Thursday later in the week with sometimes Dave, Jamey, Heath. I think I have to go on at one point. But anyway, it's really good, comprehensive, advanced stuff. And I think you're going to love it. Fill in the blank from Jonathan. Tyreek Hill will be a top blank wide receiver rest of season. He had 7 catches, 61 yards, and a touchdown on 8 targets. Tyreek Hill will be a top blank wide receiver rest of season.
18.
Wow. That was cool. Jauan, Jennings, or Tyreek Hill rest of season?
They're kind of in that same boat. I think I want to say Tyreek by a little bit over Jauan. Jauan's a winner too today.
Yeah. Will P says Taysom Hill is a top blank tight end rest of season. 40 points, Taysom Hill.
6.
12. I'm going to be a little pessimistic on Taysom Hill.
Taysom Hill this is not a knock on Alvin Kamara. Taysom Hill is so much better than Alvin Kamara in short yardage, and he should be used every single time.
We've noticed, Adam. It's been like 3 years now.
Yeah, I know. He's incredible.
He's super.
He should be used every play.
He's so good. He's so good. He's a free agent. Some teams should make him their starting running back next year.
You weren't saying he's 33 years old. You weren't saying that when he had an interception and a fumble earlier today.
I was saying that. I mean, nobody asked me at that point, but he's very good.
Yeah, I've got our chat. I can go and see what you were saying back then earlier today.
I was mad at. I don't think I said anything about Taysom Hill at that moment, but he's going into a bye week. But you got to keep him through the bye, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think so.
All right, fill in the blank number 3 from Bok Choy Baby. Adam will trick Dave Richard blank more times for game of the week.
10.
There's not 10 weeks left.
It's twice a whole.
12, 13, 14. 15,
The playoffs.
16, 18. 4 more times.
Yeah, it's tough. It's not easy. This one's from Adam Plank. The best tight end going forward is blank, and the best Packers wide receiver to start is blank.
Oh, the second one's harder than the first one. Kittle is the best tight end moving forward. The best Packers wide receiver rest of season. I'm not buying it as Watson. I don't know.
How could it not be Reed, right? I mean, it's got to be Reed. You at least have to say Reed.
Yeah, I guess it is Reed. Dobbs was a huge loser today. I couldn't believe he was barely involved.
I mean, how many passes did Jordan Love throw? He threw like 17 passes. You can't, you're not going to get a good performance. Heath, who's the best tight end going forward?
Kittle.
Okay. All right. If you haven't signed up yet for BetMGM, use the bonus code FANTASY, and you will get up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here's how it works. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using the bonus code FANTASY. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game, and you will receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your bet loses. What a deal. You lose and you get bonus bets? Just make sure you use the bonus code FANTASY when you sign up. All right, quick break. Some more fill in the blank after this. And then, of course, we got the news and notes, which thankfully is not too bad. And winners and losers and more after this.
Welcome to JJ's.
I'll have wait, there's no way I can get a burger?
No chance. But you can have the NFL on CBS streams live on Paramount Plus. Oh, hang on. There's a toy.
Josh Howard, not that Josh Howard, on Twitter says Audric Estime buyers are blank.
Fooled you.
Who was buying Audric Estime?
Well, people who picked him up.
Well, that's different. If you pick him up, that's one thing.
A first place team in the FFT Open spent 100% of their fab on him.
Yeah, okay. I guess that's a buyer. They are remorseful then.
He goes from what did he have? The 5 carries in this game? Sorry.
That is an exaggeration. It wasn't that close. It was
he played 18% of the snaps. I imagine most of them came in blowout. No,
I believe I believe he had 1 carry at the end of the third quarter.
Yeah.
Yeah, what the heck was that? That's just okay.
Just great motivational coaching.
I guess so. That was a fun touchdown for Javonte Williams. He literally got picked up and carried into the end zone.
He did a good job of getting his feet up. He didn't keep trying to step. He just picked him up and just let him carry him like a baby.
So which running back would you rather have rest of the season, Javonte or Estime?
Oh, Javonte for sure.
Okay,
so we're gonna yo-yo to Javonte now.
I had him back to back this week. Like we talked about this.
Yeah.
You don't make too much out of Sean Payton's 1 game usage of a running back.
All right.
Nope, talked up Estime this whole week.
Okay, you don't make too much out of what Sean Payton says.
Wasn't just him.
All right, David says Kupp and Nacua are both top blank wide receivers rest of season.
15 in PPR. Like 20, top 20 in non-PPR.
I'll stick with 18.
Kupp and Nacua?
Yeah.
Who are the 18 receivers that are better than them? Am I missing something?
Doesn't mean they're 18th. It just means they're top 18 comfortably.
I mean,
we're not
they feel
actually
like
putting together a ranking right now.
They feel like top 12 to me. Like there's no way I'm sitting them. They are in rarefied air where I'm not even thinking about sitting them.
Okay. Well,
not
after this week. Wait until next week when one of them has a bad game.
I'm still not going to sit them, especially Nacua. Like Kupp, I maybe, but Nacua is just he's automatic.
Home against the Eagles next week.
Oh,
See how they do in that game, and then at New Orleans after that. So we'll love them again then.
But even
then
if they struggle
at home after that,
even if they struggle against the Eagles, like I'm going to be like, oh, it's the Eagles. Everyone struggles against the Eagles.
Right, but that's one of their 6 games left.
It's fine. They'll be fine. That's the cool thing about them. The way they're used, no one's shadowing them or anything like that. They're in the slot a lot, especially Kupp.
Yeah.
What a great matchup that's going to be. Joe says the best team in the NFL is blank.
The Detroit Lions.
I mean, now they look like the Bills.
I think it's the Lions. Travis Tate says rest of season, Jonathan Taylor is a top blank running back.
Probably 15 in PPR, maybe 12 in non-PPR.
Do you sort of feel like now that Richardson's the quarterback and he doesn't throw to Taylor much? I mean, I think he probably maybe happy with 2 catches a game. Do you feel like his week is going to come down to who's getting that goal line touchdown?
Sure. That's where it starts. But you also want to think about how many carries is he going to get from week to week. The problem is this week he had all the carries you could ask for, and he was just stuffed by the Jets. So that, and you could say, his offensive line wasn't at full strength. Left tackle was out, center was out. That stuff matters too. I would imagine there will be matchups moving forward. Let me see who he plays next. Detroit, obviously, that could be a little difficult. At New England after that, he gets 24 carries against New England. You really think he's going to get just 57 yards?
I mean, the Jets were such a good matchup. They were such a good matchup. They can't tackle. You can run on them. I'm stunned by his line today.
Me too.
He had 15 points in week 2 without a touchdown. Like he's every bit as much of I'm not ever considering sitting him. He's just a starting running back.
Okay. All right. News and notes. So are both Raiders running backs injured?
Well, when you say both, you mean Madison and Zamir White?
Yeah,
because they had a third one who scored and ended up playing the most, obviously, of the game, and that's Amir Abdullah.
Yeah, yes, that's what I meant.
Madison left in late third quarter, or was it Zamir who left in late third quarter? I should probably have known that before I opened my yapper. But they both left in the second half. Zamir left late third quarter, Madison mid fourth quarter. Don't have updates on either one.
Okay, the Raiders get Houston on the road next week. Tajay Spears left with a head injury. He's in the no, I don't know if he's in the concussion protocol, but I'm sorry. Do the Raiders have Houston next week? No, they don't. That's Tennessee has Houston next week. I don't know who the Raiders have next week, Dave.
Denver.
Denver. Okay. But Tennessee
next.
does have Houston, and they may not have Tajay Spears for that. Brian Thomas Jr. left in the fourth quarter, and Gabe Davis left with a knee injury. They're going into their bye and quite possibly going to have a new head coach tomorrow. DJ Moore left. He came back. Darnell Mooney left with a hamstring injury. He's going into his bye. Good timing for that. And that's pretty much it for wide receiver. Josh Oliver left with an ankle injury. Normally I wouldn't bring that up, but he's playing. I didn't see the snap counts yet for this game, but he's been playing as much or more than Hawkinson. I don't think Hawkinson played full snap share this week.
I think he's been more productive than Hawkinson since Hawkinson got back too.
Probably.
I don't know who was more productive last week.
Hawkinson
had a ton of targets and a ton of catches last week.
Yeah, but it could be a factor. It could help Hawkinson. Hopefully, we don't want a guy to get hurt, though. But Oliver has an ankle injury. The Bears, they get a little bit healthier on the offensive line, and then they lose their left guard, Ryan Bates, in the first quarter with a head injury. The Saints get Eric McCoy back, their center, and then he left with a groin injury. Cleveland left tackle DeJuan Jones was carted off with a leg injury. That one looked serious. Jacksonville center Mitch Morris.
Fractured his ankle. He's done for the year.
Okay, then was serious. Mitch Morris left with an eye injury for Jacksonville. On defense, Nick Bosa's got this hip injury. He left the game. Denzel Ward left in the second quarter, cornerback for the Browns. Oh, Alex Anzalone for the Lions. He's out like 6 to 8 weeks. That's a tough injury for them.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's go to some winners and losers here. I'm going to let Dave kick it off with a couple of winners. Josh Downs, who was only started in 28% of leagues, 5 catches, 84 yards, and a touchdown on 5 targets. That's a Pokemon. He caught them all. And Jonnu Smith, 6 catches, 101 yards, 2 touchdowns. He got loose on a long 50-plus yard touchdown late in the game. Wide open.
Play.
Yeah.
Yep.
Downs and Jonnu. Go ahead.
So I like that Downs. We kind of established when Flacco was playing that he was the best receiver for Indianapolis then. And now here's a game where Richardson's making a start. He's throwing confidently. Downs didn't lead the team in targets, but he caught all 5 of his targets, 84 yards and a touchdown. I just think he's Indianapolis's best receiver, and I think there will be games moving forward where he will lead them in targets. So he kind of bounces back into that locked in top 30-ish type of range among wide receivers, and maybe next week, even against Detroit / especially against Detroit, a top 24 type of wide receiver in full PPR. Jonnu, it's really more about targets and like finally getting our attention with a big game. And Heath really had a great call on Jonnu today. Listen to this. 6 or more targets is always the number that I look for when it comes to tight ends. 6 or more targets in 5 of his past 6 games. 9+ PPR in 4 of 6 kind of sets the floor. He has as many or more targets than Jalen Waddle in 5 of his past 6 games. You want to look to where those targets have been going for Miami and why they haven't been going concentrated on Tyreek and on Waddle. Jonnu Smith is getting involved, and it has been for a long time. We're all just now kind of warming up to it and recognizing that Jonnu Smith does have a chance to be a startable fantasy tight end, especially with week 12, 6 teams on bye, week 14, 6 more teams on bye. Jonnu Smith, someone that could be starting for you 2 in the next 3 weeks.
All right. Heath's winners are Javonte Williams, who has only started in 19% of leagues. He's 85% rostered. And Taysom Hill. Who do you think is going to be a more valuable player for fantasy managers down the stretch? Javonte Williams, they both have a bye, by the way, or Taysom Hill?
Probably Taysom Hill because of his position. I did not start Taysom Hill against you in the podcast league. I did start Javonte Williams against you in the podcast league, which that was lucky. But listen, I don't think Javonte Williams wasn't a winner in the sense that he's now moved into this must-start RB2 role. He's right back where his peak has been all year, which is like he's ranked somewhere between RB 25 and 30. And maybe this week, because there's 6 teams on a bye, he's ranked somewhere between RB 23 and 28. But he is just the guy you plug in as your RB2 if you don't have 2 good RB2s. He caught 4 passes as well. Right back where he was, which is not that great, but it's better than being dropped.
Yes, it is. Okay, Jabe, welcome to the show, Jamey. How we doing?
Good, you?
Good. What are you watching?
The game.
Game didn't start yet.
I'm getting ready so I can give you updates.
Yeah. No, don't give me updates. You're here just in time to talk about your 2 winners, and that would be Anthony Richardson. We have already talked about him, but I'd love to get your take. and Jameson Williams. They will be competing head-to-head next week in Indianapolis, actually, which means Jameson Williams will be horrible. But anyway, Richardson and Jameson.
I mean, look, you wanted to see this from Richardson, right? You wanted to see a strong bounce-back game. You wanted to see him use his legs against a team that stinks and can't stop running quarterbacks, and he did exactly what he had to do. So I don't think he's back to being a must-start fantasy quarterback, but this was a huge step in the right direction, and hopefully, something you build off of. And then the other part of it is Josh Downs was still very, productive, and second game in a row with these two guys together where you see a strong stat line from him. So it wasn't the 20 of 30 was good. The throws still looked like they were a little bit erratic, but it's certainly a positive, and that's the thing you needed from him.
I mean, that was the one game that I watched the most of, and the drive he had in the fourth quarter to take the lead was, I don't know, had to be one of the best drives of his career, certainly of his season. He was so good, and then I tweeted how good he was, and then he overthrows a wide open guy on the 2-point conversion. It's like, well, okay, he's not perfect yet, but he had a great game. All right, that's our winners. I have two more winners I want to throw out. I think they're very relevant, and they're emerging, hopefully, and hopefully it's here to stay. Now, one of them's had good matchups 2 straight weeks. That's Jauan Jennings. So he had Tampa Bay last week, and Seattle, they stink too. And he had 10 catches for 91 yards and a touchdown on 11 targets. Do you guys have any doubt that Jauan Jennings is the best fantasy receiver on the 49ers going forward?
No, he is.
I think you have to rank it that way.
I think maybe I'll rank like, do I have any doubt for the rest of the season? Yeah.
I shouldn't have said it that way. That's too strong. But yeah.
He's probably the favorite.
And the other one is in that same game, Jaxon Smith-Njigba. 10 catches, 111 yards, 110 yards on 11 targets. And, yeah, so do we think that he has not been that good with DK Metcalf? But do we think that this is it? This is the true breakout, second half breakout. It's going to end up basically being a must-start guy?
So how many games have they played together in this offense?
8, I believe. 7 or 8.
They've had their bye already.
They've only missed 2 games this year.
8.
DK missed 2 games.
8 games.
So 8 and then 2 were great.
Do we count this? Yeah, this would be the second one that was great. I think he had one where he scored like 16 points. He caught a touchdown.
Right. It's 13 PPR points. Great.
No.
Okay. Well, he had 2 of those with DK. He had the game against New England with 16 targets. He had a monster game. And he had one kind of like it today. 11 targets, 10 catches, 110 yards.
But a 33% target share. This was different. This wasn't an overtime game with 40 or 50 pass attempts, whatever. This was 32 pass attempts, led the team in receiving.
He was the guy on the final drive, 4 for 38 on the final drive.
Mm-hmm.
He's a number 2 receiver next week for sure. And then, you see what happens coming out of next games. Next game's going to be tough. Arizona's not easy.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Losers. Start with Heath.
He plays twice in the next 3 weeks, too. That'll be it.
All right. Heath's got Mark Andrews, who we talked about, but also DeAndre Hopkins. And Dave, while Heath talks about DeAndre Hopkins, unless Heath has it, could you look up his snap count? Because I don't think he played that much again.
DeAndre Hopkins? Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just like it's frustrating to see Patrick Mahomes throw 3 touchdown passes and 2 of them go to Noah Gray. 0 of them go to DeAndre Hopkins. Xavier Worthy had a very good day and was useful downfield despite making another boneheaded step out of bounds play. There was another near catch for Hopkins, but man, they talked about it on the broadcast that the Bills never play that much man against Patrick Mahomes, and they did. And Hopkins and Kelsey just couldn't do anything about it. Like they just could not get open against man coverage. And that might be the recipe going forward.
If you've got good defensive backs and linebackers like the Bills do anyway. 44% for
Yeah, that's low. And he is not, I don't think he's been at 70% at all this year. I don't know that he ever will. And I wonder, that's really low. And I wonder if Juju had something to do with that. Not that
Juju coming next
played even less.
Yeah, I know, but did he take some snaps away from Hopkins? Because I think Hopkins was at like 60-ish% last year.
I can see how many times they played together.
Okay. Yeah, I'm kind of interested to see.
He's going to have a huge game next week.
Hopkins next week. Who does he have next week?
Carolina.
Oh, you feel that way?
Yeah.
Hopkins and Juju played 5 snaps together. So you could be onto something where they were rotating for one spot.
I didn't know if maybe this was like a Xavier Worthy game because like, haha, you traded him to us.
I said that this week. Remember?
Yeah.
You did.
And then like right out of the gate, I think he got the first touch. All right, Dave's losers are Russell Wilson. What happened, dude? 6.3.
I can tell you what happened.
All right, and Nick Chubb. Russell Wilson is 75% rostered, 41% started. Nick Chubb, 62% started, rostered in almost every league, and they were both really bad. What happened?
Same thing that happened to Lamar Jackson. He was pressured like crazy. And so anytime he didn't have enough time to drop back and throw a moon ball, he was pressured out of the pocket, flushed out, and he threw it away. Kind of a gross interception in the end zone to Marlon Humphrey. And he only completed one of those huge passes to Pickens. He had another good throw to Washington, their gigantic tight end, to help set up a score on the last drive. But they stalled so many times, 6 field goals for Pittsburgh today. So the Steelers were able to move the chains to a degree. And then once they got either near the red zone or just short of the red zone, they were kicking field goals. So I would say that this was a step forward for the Ravens defense and a step backward for Russ for sure.
He's at Cleveland next week. They are not a good defense right now, and they may not have Denzel Ward. So how hold them? I mean, 6 teams on a bye. I can't imagine too many people have the luxury of dropping Russell Wilson.
But if you're done with your buys at quarterback and Russ is just on your bench, I don't see why he should still be there.
All right,
You gotta figure it out. I mean, you take away the moon ball, and you're not going to get a big production out of him.
It's not to say that he couldn't do anything else. He just couldn't. He just wasn't making things happen.
He doesn't throw in the middle of the field. That's been a knock on him for years.
Yeah.
And so we had this conversation on HQ this morning with it was Pete Prisco and Darius Butler, former NFL quarterback. He does stuff for us. You see him on ESPN. He does stuff for their matchup, so he's fantastic. And Darius was saying as a cornerback, so they were debating the George Pickens touchdown from last week. And Darius was saying that was a plan throw, that he was putting in a spot that Pickens going to make a play. Pete called it an accident. And Pete's point, which got proven today, so take it for what it's worth, was that when you take away those plays, he's not very good. And that's kind of what happened, So if he's not making these plays where he's giving his receivers chance, I mean, it's not like he's, they're not mistakes. He's giving his receivers chances. He gave Mike Williams a chance. He gave, Pickens chances. We've seen it. But if those don't happen, like, how good is he? And that's, I think, what we found out today.
Right.
All right, Nick Chubb, no involvement in the passing game and just couldn't. I mean, he ran for more than 4 yards per carry, but just a bad game. And
game script really went against him.
Mm-hmm.
Saints built a lead, especially in the fourth quarter, and just there was nothing.
And just an absolute disaster of a schedule coming up.
Yes. We talked about that on FFT Express.
All right, Jamey, your losers are Cedric Tillman. It was his turn to be bad. As Judy and Moore were good. Judy was amazing. I haven't mentioned Jerry Judy. Huge game for him. And Tony Pollard had a horrible game, but now Tajay Spears might be out with a concussion. We'll see. But Tillman and Pollard.
I'm not worried about Tillman. Targets are still there. Jamey's still going to give these guys opportunities to make plays. Like you said, it was a Judy game. Elijah Moore had a decent game, so Tillman will be fine. Pollard, you just got to worry about him in these tough matchups. It's now back-to-back weeks where he hasn't had a big performance, and we'll see if Tajay Spears does miss time. That will help. But I don't think it's just a set it and forget it with Pollard like we have been for a good portion of the season. You really got to worry a little bit about this Titans offense and where they're going. So didn't love what I saw today.
But I think like the optimism, I think it's right. Like you have to worry about the matchup. He doesn't have a lot of good defenses left. The schedule's pretty good for Tony Pollard the rest of the way.
Maybe not next week, right? I mean, I don't know how you feel about Houston, but they got a pretty good run defense.
They're fine.
I mean, look, you're starting him next week with 6 teams on a bye. It's
Right.
very difficult to bench somebody like Pollard who's going to get all that work, especially if Tajay Spears is not there. You're going to probably see in a lot of our rankings at running back and receiver, we get to like 18, 19 in those spots. It's like that's normally where you'd see, running back 30 and wide receiver 35.
Okay. All right. So those are our winners and losers. Our winners were for Jamey, Anthony Richardson and Jameson Williams. For Dave, Josh Downs and Jonnu Smith. For Heath, Javonte Williams and Taysom Hill. For me, Jaxon Smith-Njigba and Jauan Jennings. For Heath, the losers were Mark Andrews and DeAndre Hopkins. Dave said Russell Wilson and Nick Chubb, and Jamey said Cedric Tillman and Tony Pollard. And I think before we go to break, let's take a look at maybe some goal line trends. What did you think of Roschon Johnson's role? Now, Swift came through with a long touchdown, but Roschon Johnson, the short yardage work, the goal line touchdown, is this a threat to the fantasy value of DeAndre Swift?
Hasn't he done it all year?
This before?
He hasn't done it in a few weeks.
Have they been near the goal line in a few
That's
weeks?
the thing, is they haven't been scoring. So if you recall, after week 3, when DeAndre Swift got off that terrible start, even when Swift started to get going a little bit, Roschon still had that 2-touchdown game early in the season. So we just haven't seen it. This is not new.
No.
Coming into this week, DeAndre Swift had 6 carries inside the 5-yard line, and Johnson had 4.
Yeah. All right. Well, I thought it was a little disappointing.
And Khalil Herbert had 4. So Swift had 6 of 14 in
Right.
a year.
Okay.
And then some.
I think he had a carry before Roschon had
He
2
did.
carries.
Yep.
Some what was I going to say? Some almost touchdowns. Adonai Mitchell came up a yard short of a touchdown. Anthony Richardson scored a rushing touchdown 2 plays later. Alvin Kamara had a couple of almost touchdowns. Jordan Love, no, he came up short of a touchdown. I think he scored it on the next play. Calvin Ridley had a 51-yard touchdown catch called back on a legal formation penalty. Xavier Worthy didn't have an almost touchdown, but he had an almost big play where he was out of bounds, as Heath mentioned earlier. And yes, your start of the week was a great choice. And whoever put that comment up, don't put that comment up.
Have we said Bo Nix?
We did not say bonus. And hey, listen, you have the offensive avatars on your YouTube handle. I'm not putting your comments up, and I'd prefer you not even be in here. So let's not do that. Anyway, Bo Nix, nice work, Jamey. Nice start of the week.
Yep, he was great. Good to see him take advantage of a terrible defense, and they lost another defensive back in the game with King going down, so made things even much easier for him. Schedule is very good for Bo Nix moving forward, so we might be looking at a must-start quarterback rest of the way. And I said this going into the week, he's quickly catching Jane Daniels. I mean, we were understandably so best rookie quarterback, maybe rookie of the year. They may make the playoffs and the Commanders may miss, and it may be Bo Nix stealing rookie of the year, which I think would be a huge surprise based on how the season has unfolded for the majority of the season.
That'd be pretty cool. All right, let's take a break here and get into the games when we come back on Fantasy Football Today. We'll be right back.
CBS Sports HQ, giving you college football coverage unlike anyone else.
We're talking Big Ten.
Pre- and post-game coverage.
Are you encouraged with the way that this team responded?
Along with breaking news,
A lot of movement in the rankings this week.
highlights, and expert analysis.
That streak could be in jeopardy here.
What was your main takeaway from this game? How impressive was his domination?
That really changed the football game.
Let's go ahead and have some more fun.
Another wild ending.
The chaos continues.
Turn to CBS Sports HQ.
Actually, before we get into the games, I think we should do the leaderboard here and just take a look. Just talk about one player in the top 5 at each position. So we start quarterback, Dave. I'll throw it to you. Jared Goff, 42 points, 412 yards, and 4 touchdowns. Right back in the MVP discussion. Bo Nix, 36. Matthew Stafford, 35. And then we actually had a 3-way tie. 3 players tied for 4th. Jameis Winston, Tua Tagovailoa, and Anthony Richardson at 29 points. This was a great week for quarterbacks. What stands out to you?
CJ Stroud in week 13, Will Levis in week 14 and week 17, even Aaron Rodgers in week 15, and Gardner Minshew if he's still the starter in week 16. Those are the quarterbacks that are up next for Jacksonville. Obviously, Goff and the Lions offense on a different level than almost every other team in the league. But Jacksonville, just as a defense, pathetic. And they lost, I don't know how much of a difference it'll make that they lost Tyson Campbell in the game. He got hurt. But, man, just an awful defense, a tremendous matchup for everybody involved in fantasy when you take on the Jaguars.
Who is week 13?
Week 13, I think, is Levis. No, Stroud.
All right, so the only thing you got to worry about is the new coach bump that they'll get because they're going to fire Doug Peterson tomorrow.
All right, let's take a look at the top 5 running backs in fantasy in week 11. And it's Barkley, Breece Hall with 2 touchdowns today and 7 catches. David Montgomery, Josh Jacobs, and Devon Achane. Barkley, Breece Hall, Montgomery, Jacobs, Achane. Jamey, what stands out to you there?
It's good to see Breece Hall have a performance that we've been waiting for. Going into their bye week, he needed this. I think fantasy managers needed to see it. We've said this on different shows, and all of us, I think, have had the same opinion that it was, this was one of the best buy low candidates you could find if somebody's willing to sell, and you missed your window, because nobody's going to sell them now. So this is what you hope to see. Schedule is fantastic moving forward. The passing game is still struggling. I know he got 2 touchdowns from Aaron Rodgers today. One of those did go to Hall, but he's got to be their best player moving forward. Aaron Rodgers looks terrible. They're not on the same page, the receivers right now. And so I'd love to see this from this type of usage from Breece Hall moving forward, especially in the passing game.
Heath, let's talk about the top 5 wide receivers. Amon-Ra St. Brown, Cooper Kupp, Jerry Jeudy, Puka Nacua, and Jauan Jennings. And I order you to talk about Jerry Jeudy, 6 for 142 and a touchdown.
I think it's probably just going to be one of these guys is good for the next few weeks, with the schedule turning absolutely awful. But there's a ton of volume with Jameis. Jeudy has had the targets and now 2 good fantasy production games in a row, but I don't have any confidence on predicting on a week-to-week basis how to rank Cedric, Tillman, Jerry Jeudy, and Elijah Moore, because Elijah Moore had a very good day too. Like they all get 8 to 10 targets, and the guys that score the touchdowns are going to be good.
I mean, at the very least, we can say Jeudy now 3 straight weeks with 12 PPR points. And I think every game was with Jameis. So that should be something that we could just kind of bake into the thoughts that we have on this passing game moving forward.
Yeah, don't expect this. Don't expect this. Just expect, 12 plus. And that's a good number 3 receiver.
Taysom Hill is our number 1 tight end. Brock Bowers is number 2 at 31 points. Taysom Hill scored 40 in PPR. Jonnu Smith, 28. David Njoku, 19. And then we had Noah Gray and Zach Ertz with 18 fantasy points. I'll go right back to Heath Cummings, Taysom Hill, Brock Bowers, Jonnu Smith, David Njoku, Noah Gray. Who stands out to you?
We probably should have said something about Brock Bowers when we were talking about who's going to be the best tight end for the rest of the season. And we just I think Dave and I both just said George Kittle, and Brock Bowers has been absolutely incredible. It was great to see. I think it's really kind of key that Gardner Minshew had a little bit of success in this game. And maybe he gets to just start the rest of the year, and they don't have to mess around with this carousel of quarterbacks. But Bowers is currently the number 1 tight end in fantasy, in total fantasy points, and has a very good chance to be that for the rest of the year, and definitely is in Dynasty as well.
He set an NFL record for most catches in a game by a rookie tight end with 13.
And he might break Puka's record.
The problem I have is, how often is he going to see this type of target volume? Obviously, 16 is crazy, but I mean, I believe his last game, he had just 10 PPR points, and that was it. And I'm not trying to poo-poo the guy. You're starting him if you got him. And he's a top 3 fantasy tight end at minimum the rest of the way.
He actually caught a touchdown last week, so he had 5 for 45.
And week before is what I was thinking of, the 5 target, 5 catch game.
He has 2 games this season below 10 fantasy points. Like, we are struggling to find a tight end who can score 10 points on a regular basis.
Yep.
He just does it every single week.
Yeah, he's the man.
Is he a first round pick next year?
Nah, I don't think so.
Not going to be able to steal him in round 10 like I did this year.
Well,
I bet he's going to end up being like a top 28-ish pick.
I guess we got to see who the quarterback and coach is.
Yeah, for sure.
If he's averaging, if he finishes this year averaging 15 fantasy points per game, I think he has to be a first round pick in year 2.
And that is a team that obviously is going to add so much this offseason.
It's bringing the Sanders to town, right?
If Sanders is going anywhere, he's going to Dallas, right?
Vegas would be pretty fun.
All right, let's get into the games. Colts 28, Jets 27.
How about both Sanders or just the quarterback?
Both.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're going to pick high enough to get Shedeur.
Colts 28, Jets 27. And we talk about the Jets offense here in this dud of a game for Garrett Wilson. 4 catches for 18 yards. Last week, he had 5 catches for 41 yards on 6 targets. Oh, Jamey, what's your take on that? Like, can we trust Wilson and Adams going forward after their bye?
Schedule's great. That's the one saving grace, is that the schedule's great. So hopefully hit the reset button, take a little break on the bye and come back and, start to look like what they're capable of looking like. We've seen, you go back to the Houston game, right? And that was monster performance for Garrett Wilson, where he had the highlight reel catch but scored twice. That was the touchdown at the end of the game for Davante Adams, and that was against a good defense. I know their secondary was really beat up at that point, but that's still a good defense that they played. And so the last 2 weeks have just been really tough to watch. I do think the Arizona defense is going to be one of those situations where we want to avoid until I think we see otherwise. This was a troubling game because the Colts defense, look, give them some credit. They did a great job against Josh Allen the week before, turning him over and keeping him under 20 fantasy points. So maybe they're a defense that we have to say is not is a little underrated. But I do think, again, the schedule will hopefully help them. You're going to have to be pretty loaded at receiver to sit those guys because of how many targets they should be able to get. You just have to hope that Aaron Rodgers is not disinterested because they're falling out of playoff contention. So that would be a big concern.
They're pathetic. He is now 0 for 3 on pass attempts of 20 or more air yards in his last 2 games. The 0 is one thing. The 3, he doesn't throw the ball downfield at all. It's ridiculous. So getting 8 targets is great, but when they're all 4 yards downfield, it's just garbage. They stink.
Did you see the win percentage for the Jets quarterbacks recently?
No.
He's got a lower win percentage than Zach Wilson and Sam Darnold.
I saw a stat on the game today. I'm pretty sure I have this right. He has 3 games with the Jets where he's gone 4 straight possessions without picking up a first down.
Uh-oh.
And that happened 1 time in his career with the Packers. Already 3 times.
You better be saying uh-oh about something with the Jets.
No, just stop. We don't talk.
No, nothing bad, but just first carry for the Chargers was Gus Edwards.
You want to guess the ADOT for Garrett Wilson and Davante Adams?
Well, for Adams, it was probably in the 7 range. For Wilson, I'm guessing it was around 5 or 6.
You got it backwards. Garrett Wilson's ADOT today was 8.38 yards. Davante Adams' ADOT was 2.57. It's according to early Week 11 numbers coming into True Media.
All right, next game. Next game is Green Bay 20, Chicago 19. Who wins a game on a blocked field goal at the end? Lucky teams, tell you that much. No, just kidding. The Packers get the win on the special teams play. And who would you guys, Jamey, who would you rather have rest of season, Jauan Jennings or Josh Jacobs?
Both. I mean, they're both excellent players. That's what you need.
You don't get the joke? This way offer.
No, you made the trade offer.
We roasted him for it this morning as a terrible offer.
For that, you're crazy. That's a perfectly fair trade.
I thought it was fair. I just looked at it as I thought you would have taken the other trade because you have Pacheco.
I see. Anyway, sorry, I just wanted to bring that up. I got roasted for that, and I didn't deserve it.
You 100% deserved it. And
why?
The trade chart said that one of them was worth double the other one. Everyone in the chat said that Jacob was much more valuable. And you're victory lapping because Jauan Jennings had a good day and Josh Jacobs had a 20-point fantasy day.
All right, but they're good. Going into the game. Going into the game, Jauan Jennings averaged half a point less per game than Josh Jacobs.
So I'll say this. I'll say this. He picked the right person to make the trade offer to.
Right.
Because I have on that team Jacobs, Gibbs.
You have Jacob Gibbs on your team?
Yeah, I know. Brees Hall, Jahmyr Gibbs, Chuba Hubbard, Josh Jacobs, and Kareem Hunt. And my best receiver is Devontae Smith. So it was a fair deal to help both of us, but I just wasn't going to make that trade.
Yeah, no, I was just joking around. All right. Anyway, on this game, Tucker Kraft, 1 target, no catches. Do we make anything of this performance, or do we just chalk it up to a 17 pass attempt game and give everyone a pass?
He's nerve-wracking because he's touchdown dependent. So anytime you get these type of players, you're going to have some concerns. He plays the position where you're hoping he scores, but when you start to compare him to some other guys in that same range, you're going to have some questions. So like Hunter Henry or Tucker Kraft moving forward, I made a terrible decision that I was looking ahead with bye weeks and the way my league was. I dropped Taysom Hill to keep Tucker Kraft. That was bad. Because of bye week next week, because Tatum's on bye next week. Yeah. So, you're gonna have, I think, some questions about where he is moving forward with, fantasy relevance. But then he'll come back and score on 4 catches or 3 catches for 50 yards. You'll go right back to him.
What do we think of the Bears, Dave, in their first game with a new offensive coordinator?
They were much better. Caleb was better. The offensive line was better. They were healthier. They had both their starting tackles back. And really, the wheels really didn't come off until the last drive. where Caleb was sacked on back-to-back plays. There was a 3rd and 19, I think it was. And then Caleb made a great throw to set up a 4th and short, and he got it. The first huge difference that Caleb made compared to previous weeks is when he would roll out of a pocket, he would lean on his legs a lot sooner than he would have in prior weeks. So we got some great rushing yardage from Caleb Williams, 9 carries for 70 yards. I wonder how long he'll keep that in his arsenal. He did that at times at USC. Certainly used his legs a lot in the red zone. I'm a little surprised we didn't see him at the goal line for Chicago at any point today. But I thought that he made a bunch of bigger, better throws than he had in the past. Definitely seemed calmer in the pocket overall. So it was a good step forward for him, and a lot of shorter throws too, which we talked about all week. That was something that just made a lot of sense for Caleb Williams. Not necessarily somebody that you'll feel good starting. At best, he's a bye week replacement at quarterback or a low-end number 2 quarterback in Superflex leagues. But you can see him starting to put pieces together, and that's going to be good for Odunze and DJ Moore. Those were his top 2 target getters. Keenan Allen had 8 targets, but he didn't do much with it. I think Odunze is going to be the one that ends up being kind of his big play guy down the stretch.
All right, we'll keep an eye on it. Not really enough to get you too excited for those players, but they do have Minnesota and Detroit 4 times in the next 5 games. Those are teams that they don't have bad defenses, but they get thrown on a lot and they give up a lot of fantasy points. We'll see if that can translate into anything. You might need to start those guys next week. New Orleans,
is he the 4th best rookie quarterback right now?
He's definitely behind Daniels. He's definitely behind Nix. He's definitely behind May.
There you go.
I think he's ahead of Spencer Rattler.
Yeah.
I don't know. Penix made one good throw.
Penix yeah. I mean, we're not going to put him.
All right, New Orleans 35, Cleveland 14. From what I saw, Jerome Ford played twice as many snaps as Nick Chubb. Sometimes those snap counts get updated, but
yeah, no, I've got it.
Yeah,
and he did. He led the team. He had 57% of the snaps. Chubb had 29%. Strong had 10%. I can make the excuse that it was game script, and I think that's legitimate.
Yeah.
Ford played 11 of 13 on 3rd downs. I think he's their passing downs back.
So Jameis Winston is 26% rostered. He gets the Steelers, Broncos, and Steelers, and then Chiefs in the next 4 weeks. Heath, should we be making a move for Jameis Winston here?
Probably not. We probably should have made him. Probably should have made a move to start him today. But I don't want to. You may be in a situation with that type of roster rate where you're in one of those leagues where everybody carries 2 quarterbacks and your quarterback's on a bye. And so, yeah, then you may have to go at him and start him. He may end up projecting as a top 15 quarterback this week. He may even be the top guy that's not rostered in 60% of leagues, but I don't want to start him against the Steelers.
I think you got a 3-game sample size. You got Baltimore. He took advantage of that matchup, did great. You got the Chargers, did not do well in a tough matchup, and still had over 40 pass attempts. You had a great matchup again today. He took advantage of it. Just understand who Jameis is. He's going to struggle in tough matchups.
Any concerns about Alvin Kamara?
I mean, look what the Steelers just did to the MVP.
They didn't play golf today.
Wow. Well, they didn't play Allen, who's the MVP.
Yeah, Allen won the MVP today.
Yep.
Oh, come on. It's so Lamar Jackson. It's not even.
I'm not ready.
You cannot win the MVP if you don't win your division as a quarterback. No way.
Unanimous, it should be. Unanimous. They have more. They're going to play the Steelers again. It's not over yet.
Right.
Steelers are, by the way, I think the latest team in history to play their first division game.
Great.
So,
what do we think of Kamara?
Yeah, all right, forget Kamara. Any interest in
MVP? You got Taysom Hill through the air. We're used to seeing Taysom Hill steal a touchdown, maybe 2 from Alvin Kamara over the course of a game. Certainly when they get inside the 10. But he had 10 targets. Alvin Kamara had 4. He was stealing targets from Kamara now. It's frustrating as somebody who rosters Kamara. I'm frustrated by it, and I know it's not usually like this. So I'm hoping that this was a one-off. Taysom Hill has his monster game, and Kamara will get a chance. He had a goal line carry in this game. He just didn't score on it. Guess he did.
He got down to the 2-yard line, and he got then he had a carry to the 1, and then so MVS, just quick. Any interest in MVS?
Yeah, guys,
that's an MVS.
Bye.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's on a bye. You're not going to hold him through his bye.
In Dave's 14-team league, where you start 3 wide receivers and 17 flexes, he might be a start next week. Not next week, but the week after.
And
He'll be held, that's for sure. No one's going to drop him in that league.
Cedric Wilson barely played. I thought Cedric Wilson might be their number one guy, but he played 10 snaps, ran 5 routes. All right, next game is Pittsburgh 18, Baltimore 16. Came down to a failed 2-point conversion. It was a good game. It wasn't a high-scoring game, but it was a good game. Steelers dominated time of possession here.
See, I would argue it came down to much more than that. Justin Tucker missed 2 field goals. The Ravens had 2 fumbles. Derrick Henry fumbled on the second play of the game.
I am aware of all those things, but at the end of the day, they had the ball. They were trying to tie it with a minute left, and it came down to that. But yes, I understand there was a lot more at play than just
more
that.
mistakes made by Baltimore than Pittsburgh.
Derrick Henry has scored fewer than 15 points in PPR in 4 of his last 5 games, and he's scored in all 4 of those games.
But bust. He's
wow.
finally a bust.
Yeah, obviously we got it right. Okay, we've talked about Andrews, Zay Flowers. Maybe we'll value as a number 2. So let's talk about the Steelers.
Got lucky with that touchdown though.
Who Flowers? Yeah.
Days.
I mean, the Steelers are pretty easy, right? You start Pickens, and then Najee's just kind of a matchups guy.
I mean, give Najee credit today. 13 PPR points. He was involved in the passing game. You wonder how much the back injury was a factor for Warren. I know he played, but still, going into the week, did they change some of the game plan just to give those chances to Najee? I thought he ran well in the first half. Just given the opponent. Yeah,
the Ravens give up a lot of receiving yards to right. They're like one of the worst at that to running backs. So. Yeah. They both had 4 catches. All right, I think we can skip the Steelers. I'm sorry, I don't think we shortchanged them. Detroit 52, Jacksonville 6. Heath, any takeaways from this game? How about Brian Thomas Jr. with a nice game? 5 for 82 on 7 targets, but only started in 46% of leagues.
Did he leave that game early too?
He left it very late. I think on the last play that he
shouldn't have been playing at that point anyway.
Yeah, probably not.
Very, very disappointing effort from Travis Etienne. Like Tank Bigsby's out. You got a chance to have all the touches. And he had pretty much all the touches, 12 out of 17 rush attempts. He was the only running back who saw a target in this game, and it turned into 6.3 PPR fantasy points.
Were you optimistic for him?
I had him at 24, I think, 25. So I was hopeful it was an opportunity, and he was just awful.
Yeah. I think I had him ranked similar, but it was just by default with all the teams off. Like Detroit's just so good against the run, and Mac Jones is so bad against everything.
I'm not ready to say that they're so good against the run, and they just lost Anzalone, and they had already lost some key pieces.
Well, I mean, coming into the week, they were good. I mean, if you want to say coming out of it because of the injuries, then sure.
Well, but they had some games after Hutch got hurt where they were giving up some run. So I'm not. They're not like Baltimore, where they're like a shutdown run defense. They're good, but they're not like a shutdown D. ETN played 74% of the snaps, 7 of 10 on third down. Here's a problem. The Jaguars had 0 snaps in the red zone today.
I think the only player that you might have confidence, you'll have confidence in Ingram. But let's say, look, if Lawrence comes back after the bye, you're probably going to start Thomas and Ingram most weeks, right?
That's if they fire Peterson, then what is Lawrence's motivation?
Personal.
He's paid to play.
No, because if he has a shoulder injury.
Well, sure. That's fair.
Right. If Lawrence comes back, it's obviously all dependent on that. All right. And then for Detroit, you just if you still are able to trade, which a lot of people are.
Yeah.
Are you selling Jameson Williams?
Yeah, if you can. Sell high.
I would say so, right? I mean,
he definitely fits the bill of a sell high candidate, but what do you think you're getting for him though? That's the thing. It's like you're getting would you trade him for Travis Etienne? Probably so. Would you trade him for Bucky Irving?
I'd rather have him than Etienne at this point.
Yeah, but that's the range of players you're talking about though. It's like you're not getting a superstar for Jameson Williams.
Nope. I'm selling Jared Goff if I can.
Yeah, you've been talking about this for a while. About you think they're going to be conservative right down the stretch?
Well, I mean, they got the Bills at Chicago and at San Francisco in the fantasy playoffs.
I guess the counter to that would be 2 of those 3 games could be high scoring. He actually has to throw 30.
Yeah, especially that Buffalo at home could be.
Yeah. All right.
That could be the MVP.
Lamar Jackson is the MVP. Oh God. Who would you guys vote for right now? Honestly.
Josh Allen.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Wow. That's really stunning to me because I feel like Lamar Jackson was so far ahead of the field before today. Dave, can I get a little support here?
So I don't know if he was so far ahead of the field. He was definitely the betting favorite. I think when you look at it, like Lamar Jackson has another MVP candidate on his team.
That doesn't. He still was having like by far the best season, and I don't know. We live in a week-to-week society. I think sometimes
this league is
you can't finish second place in your own division. And
didn't finish. He didn't finish second place in his division.
You
but
said I had to vote right now today.
Right now, I'd vote for Josh Allen.
I'd vote for Lamar.
I might vote for Goff.
I mean, if the Ravens win out and Lamar still has the best stats at the end of the year, that's a completely different question.
Right.
I'm voting for L'Jarius Sneed. Rams 28, Patriots 22. Stafford with a huge game. So I don't really know how to feel.
What I was hoping for from Stafford last week.
I know. He's like, he was only started in 21% of leagues. People get sick of it.
I didn't watch enough of this game to know for sure, but just looking at the Patriots and seeing that they had exactly 0 sacks, that tells me that the offensive line stood up for Matthew Stafford. So,
or just the Patriots can't get to anybody anyway.
I mean, they got to Caleb Williams 9 times last week.
Yeah,
so
that's Caleb Williams.
They must have something that can help them.
Yeah, they had the Bears
quarterback. They couldn't do that today.
They had the Bears.
Right, but did the Rams offensive line look like world beaters to you last week?
No, but I think the Dolphins defense is better than the Patriots defense, even with the Dolphins guys not having a lot of Dolphins defense not having
no disagreement. But I think the offensive line, if the offensive line still sucked for the Rams, the Patriots would have had at least a couple of sacks.
Well, it's also should give you a lot of optimism for Tua next week.
For sure.
So Stafford against the Eagles next week with 6 teams on a bye?
No.
Nope.
Bye week replacement.
You'd start him?
As if I
Stafford against the Eagles or Jameis against the Steelers?
Stafford.
Yeah, I'll take Stafford over.
Who does, wait, so who does? Oh, so Russell Wilson has the Browns. So Wilson against the Browns or Stafford against the Eagles?
Wilson.
I might take Stafford.
I'll probably go. I was wondering, is who scored more fantasy points per game this year? Jameis Winston in his starts or Matthew Stafford when he's had Kupp and Puka at the start of the game?
I'm gonna say Jameis. Just a guess.
I don't know.
Stafford's had one.
It'd be a great who has more later in the week.
Who has more? Okay. Yeah.
I think Stafford's had one bad game with Puka and Kupp, and it was a Dolphins game.
Right, but Jameis has had like 2 huge games out of 3, hasn't he?
Give me a minute.
Okay.
Get your
so wait, so we're right now we are talking about the Rams and the Patriots. Kyren Williams. Is there a lot separating Kyren Williams from Ramondre Stevenson at this point?
It's a fair question. I guess upside.
Yes, the big thing is the fact that the Rams are going to score 3 touchdowns every week, and some weeks Kyron's going to score 2 of them. And Ramondre did that once this year, but that's going to happen more often. For the touchdowns are the big difference.
I just want everyone to know that I am not saying that I was simply asking the question. So please don't yell at me for saying Adam said there was no difference. Anyway, I just want to bring up Kendrick Bourne. 5 catches, 70 yards, and a touchdown on 5 targets. So that was impressive for him, and maybe he's the number 1 receiver for them going forward. He's barely played this year, but that was a nice performance for a guy.
What did he have last week, though?
So he didn't play last week. Week 9, he had 4 catches for 41 yards on 6 targets. I think he played about 2/3 of the snaps, something like that. Maybe he left with an injury. I honestly don't remember.
I still take my chances with Douglas.
Douglas had a solid game too. 5 for 59 on 7 targets. He's 41% rostered. They have Miami next week. Minnesota 23 and Tennessee 13. I definitely thought that Dave and Jamey were too high on Sam Darnold. So good job to you guys. He had a great game, 27.6 fantasy points. And he's at Chicago next week. So that'll be a tough decision for people.
If only Snead was there.
What the heck, Aaron Jones? And Aaron Jones lost some carries near the goal line too. I saw Ty Chandler in there, I think, on 4th and goal. Cam Akers, I believe, was in on a 2-point conversion. I don't know if Jones is running out of steam or something, but he is struggling lately. Do we have concerns about Aaron Jones? He gets the Bears next week.
I mean, he has a rib injury, so who knows how much that factored in.
Would you like to know the percentage of snaps he played? Would you like to guess the percentage of snaps that Aaron Jones played?
68.
Glad McConkey hurt.
Nuts. Aaron Jones was at 55%. He led the team with 6 of 14 snaps on third down, 4 or 5 snaps inside the 10, but he really has not looked right. Adam, I have the answer to Heath's question.
Okay, go ahead.
Matthew Stafford in games started with Puka and Cooper Kupp. Hasn't been that many of them. 23.38 fantasy points per game. That's 6 points per passing touchdowns. Jameis, 3 starts. 24.09.
Hey, by the way, Heath, you really need to Azer stat these more. You can't count week 1 when Puka left. I don't even know if you can count week 2. I think Kupp left that game. And you certainly can't count Punch and Nacua, as Jamey calls it, the game he got ejected. It's not about starting.
No, I mean, you're trying to Azer stat.
Well, the Punch and Nacua game, he actually played well because he got the overtime touchdown.
He had like 21 points in overtime touchdown.
Yeah, honestly, it's just week 1, he didn't have a great game, Stafford, and then the Dolphins game seems to be kind of an outlier because the offensive line sucks so bad.
Tell me how to feel about Calvin Ridley, guys. He had the long touchdown call back.
No, Will Disley.
4 catches for 58 yards on 6 targets. Currently looking up his ADOT because it's always high with Will Levis. How do we feel about Calvin Ridley as they get the Texans next week?
He'll be a low-end number 2 receiver, most likely in the poop pile of receivers that we don't want to start, but might have to start.
Yeah, I think we're going to start him.
Downturn in targets today with just 6.
Look at his ADOT. 25.3 yards. This is ridiculous. Come on, man. Give him some layups.
Give him Mason Rudolph back.
He's shooting half-court threes every time. This is ridiculous. All right. By the way, Nick Westbrook-Akine, 99-yard touchdown, 16% rostered. Who's a better guy to add if you're desperate? Nick Westbrook-Akine or Kendrick Bourne?
I would take Akine.
I'll take Westbrook-Akine. I mean, he had the touchdown stretch for a while.
Oh,
I think he scored in 5 of his last 6.
Shaquille Jones in our chat says Justin Herbert is the MVP. Okay, might as well be.
Based on that throw to Will Disley, he might be.
Miami 34, Las Vegas 19. Dolphins had the ball for more than 33 minutes. Pretty good advantage there. It was all Bowers Day, disappointing day for Jacoby Myers, but he's got a pretty good track record. Jalen Waddle, drop him?
He's definitely on that range.
It's unbelievable.
I'm not making that.
If the Dolphins were on bye in week 12 and you needed the roster spot, would you drop Jalen Waddle?
Yeah,
you would. I think he's in that range of guys, and it might be more for people in shallow leagues, 10-team leagues, where if you don't need him and you need the roster spot, you can move on from Jalen Waddle. I mean, now he's seeing Jonnu Smith get more targets than him, or at least as many. 5 of the last 6 games, and he never seems to do well when Tyreek's on the field and Achan's on the field and Tua's on the field. He's a side dish. He's not a main eventer. I don't know why that is, but it is.
You wonder if it's worth holding on to him with Tyreek's wrist injury and if something happens there.
All right. Anything else to say about this game?
But is that the best reason to hang on to Waddle? Because you can't confidently start him anymore.
I'm sure a lot of people are going to be in the boat like I am next week where I have to start him. I wasn't able to sit him this week, but I have to start him next week.
All right.
And I think it is a good reason. Like it's the same theory as holding on to backup running backs. Like
handcuff. But how confident are you that Waddle would even be a must-start guy if Till got hurt?
If Tyreek wasn't there, he'd be a must-start guy.
Yeah.
I hope so. All right, so we're going to take a break here. Last break. We got to get to the 4 p.m. games. We'll be right back after this on Fantasy Football Today.
There are some things in life that you can't quite explain.
An extraordinary story.
Maybe it sounds flawless, looks effortless, or makes you feel like a part of history.
The first ever goal for BFC.
And when all of those phenomenons come together, it's perfect. pitch perfect.
Denver whoops Atlanta 38-6. Falcons going into their bye, and then they have good defenses, Chargers and Vikings. I'm sure Bijan will be a must start. He's coming off a bad game, but that's that. No concerns about Drake London going forward, right? Just, right. Is what it is. Mooney
Kirk has his 2 revenge games coming up.
Minnesota in week 14, and then Washington in week 17. All right, and then we'll see on the Mooney hamstring issue. Is Kyle Pitts droppable going into his bye?
If you need to, if that's the only guy you could drop. You need to pick up a tight end to replace him, then yeah.
Reluctant drop.
All right, Bo Nix is the man, and Sutton was good. Any interest in a wide receiver for this team that's not Cortland Sutton?
Oh, since you're on a delay, go watch the T. Higgins catch.
We need a lot of T. Higgins. We need a lot. Who's winning right now, Heath?
I've got like a 3-point lead.
Still?
Yeah.
That's not good.
So 2 of the touchdowns that Bo Nix had today were smart play calls by Sean Payton, where they were screen throws that just the Falcons could not catch up to Troy Franklin and before that Marvin Mims. Just like really short, basically screen. I don't even know what the 8 was on those throws. If it was more than 2 yards, it would surprise me.
The first touchdown was a well-designed play too.
Yeah. So like it's the combination of an efficient quarterback working in a well-schemed offense. Sean Payton knows what he's doing. He's got a good offense cooking right now. He doesn't need playmakers to carry him through other than the playmaker that he's got at quarterback. When they run into tougher matchups, I'm going to be very, very nervous about Bo Nix.
But do you want any other of the receivers or just leave them on waivers?
No, I mean, Jamey makes
a different guy.
Mims.
Yeah. All right. Vele maybe is like kind of becoming a number.
Last week it was Vele. The 2 games prior to that, Troy Franklin looked like he was building towards something. It's just that's this offense. It's just a lot of different parts.
Vele had 66 yards today. He had a decent game. But
but then you'll get little Jordan Humphrey, and then you'll get Mims, and then you'll get Franklin, and it's just
all right. The answer's no. Buffalo 30. My bad. Buffalo 30. Kansas City 21. I belabored that point. So yeah, Kareem Hunt, Pacheco could be coming back next week. Heath, was this the last time we're starting Kareem Hunt?
I don't. Probably not. It's Carolina.
Yeah, but it's Pacheco week.
I'm not gonna project Pacheco for his starter workload in his first game back from a broken leg.
No shot.
Okay. Well, if it was,
I think my hope is that they just take the full 3 weeks with Pacheco, bring him back after the Raiders game. We could start on 2 more games.
But the report was that he's healthy to go next week. But
it'll be a coach's decision next week, right?
Whatever.
Like we heard, Nico Collins was 100% cleared 2 weeks ago as well.
I share your sentiments, but if this was the last game for Kareem Hunt, he left us with a big crap burger of 6 points.
The dive from the 2-yard line was not impressive.
What was that all about?
It was hilarious.
If you ever want to know what it would look like if I tried to dive from the 2-yard line, you can go see Kareem Hunt, and it would be at least he got more air than I would have gotten. At least we can say that. How about no targets for Kareem Hunt after what he did last week?
Not a ton of routes for Amari Cooper. He had a 53.3% route rate. Khalil Shakir, on the other hand, ran 80% of the routes. Curtis Samuel, 69% of the routes. So they're easing Cooper back in. And Khalil Shakir had a really good game. And James Cook averaged a little over 2 yards per carry, but he had the best game of the year for any running back against Kansas City with 2 touchdowns and 5 catches and 27 total yards. This run defense is no joke.
He didn't lead the Bills in snaps. Bills
he didn't play like he normally does.
No, Ty Johnson was playing a lot more down the stretch, and Ty Johnson continues to play on 3rd downs.
Seattle 20, San Francisco 17. Jamey, any takeaways from this game?
Bosa got hurt.
I did mention Bosa got hurt, yeah.
Okay.
Jamey, any takeaways from San Francisco and Seattle?
Any takeaways? Jauan Jennings is awesome. They need Kittle back. I mean, we covered it. DK Metcalf is fine. You're going to be happy with him moving forward. And JSN looks like he's going to be a number 2 receiver until proven otherwise.
What's your advice to the Deebo Samuel manager?
Keep starting him. I mean, you know, it's frustrating. I don't think he's in the Jalen Waddle category yet, but he's slipping. I mean, you know, I had high expectations. I'm sure a lot of people did. You know, Kittle ruled out and taking on the Seattle defense that he typically beats up on. And so this was awful. He looked a little slow. I mean, if you want to, you know, critique him, but you know, we'll see how that changes moving forward. Was he on the injury report this week with the oblique injury, or was that just last week?
I don't believe he was on the injury report.
Yeah, I wonder if he's 100%.
All right. Well, that's it for fantasy football today. Thanks for watching and listening, everybody. We'll talk to you tomorrow with an episode of Beyond the Box Score, and have a wonderful Monday. See ya.